For a while now, I've been hearing pretty mixed opinions on a certain setup. Some people claim, oh, it's just an old meta. Other people think it's a cheap setup that's actually pretty good. And then other people with bad magical power get annoyed because it's not as good for them. Now today we're going to be taking a look at what happens if you combine the Pooch Sword with the Mastiff armor. And for people who, say, oh, Mastiff is just an old meta, and to be honest, it kind of is. Mastiff is very useful, don't get me wrong, for certain things, but, it's old news now. But trust me, something beautiful happens when you combine this sword with the armor. Trust me. Now, first of all, let's take a look at the Mastiff armor in question. It's nothing special at all. It's just regular Mastiff armor. If you don't know what Mastiff armor is, it's basically just an armor set that perks give an insane buff in health in forfeit for basically no defense. As you can see, my defense is minus 999,000. But really, we're all here for its full set bonus. To be fair play, it's called Absolute Unit, and it doesn't really lie. Plus 50 health per 1 crit damage. Regain 2% of max health when hit. Receive 20% less damage from wolves, your crit damage is 50% less effective. So the main thing to take away from this full set bonus is the fact that you get plus 50 health per crit damage. So to benefit from Mastiff to its fullest, you want to get your crit damage as high as possible. That's why it's all reforged to Fierce, and our accessories are reforged to Silky because, at least for me, that is the power stone that gives me the most crit damage. As for the Pooch Sword, once again, this is nothing special. This cost me 6 million coins. It's got one for all on it. It literally it's not really too relevant. It's not recommed, it's not hot potatoed, it doesn't even have a gemstone in it, but it doesn't need it. And once again, it's the ability that really does count. Deal plus 1 damage per 50 max health. Receive 20% less damage from wolves. Gain plus 150 strength against wolves. The main thing to take away from this is essentially if you have more health, you're going to deal more damage, which is perfect because the Mastiff gives a ridiculous amount of health. So wearing my Mastiff armor and holding out my Pooch Sword, I get around over 80,000 health, which is insane. Granted, we have no defense. And to be honest, all that's really left to do is just show you what this setup can do. But just before we do get into it, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS, it gets yourself 5% off. Also, you should subscribe to the channel, it really does help out a lot. Join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of this video. We offer services such as Slayers and Dungeon Carries, so if you need carries or want to carry and make some coins, make sure you join. So, just to reiterate, this armor in its entirety has probably cost me around about 6 million coins. That's including the gemstone slots and putting the gemstones in. It's not really a necessity, I don't really know why I did it. This weapon cost me 6 million coins. You could probably spend a little bit more and not go for a one for all Pooch Sword, which is fine. At the end of the day, it's really not too relevant because regardless of whether it's one for all or not, it's still a ridiculous set for the price. Anyway, we'll have to show that. Okay, I've just gone ahead and purchased a level 93 Epic Tiger for around about 11.5 million coins. The Tiger is going to give us a bit of strength, a decent amount of crit damage and everything else. So if we just simply damage test against the hub zombies, we're dealing over 600k damage, which isn't too bad given that the whole setup, including the pet, has cost around about 23 million coins, which is really quite cheap. Now it is of course important to note that, well, quite obviously the more magical power you have, essentially in the end more damage you're going to be able to do. I mean that's consistent with everything, but especially for this setup. The main way in which you get crit damage is through, well, number one, your reforges, which we're all fully reforged, and then it's your magical power, which is obviously giving me a huge amount. And we can actually take a look at the breakdown of our crit damage, and as you can see, 839 is from our magical power, our power stone being Silky, 119 is through the tuning, which is still magical power, and then all the other smaller numbers are from all the gear that we have. Now, something that's really quite interesting is if we go over to the Dwarven Mines, and realistically when it comes to combat, and if anyone's in the Dwarven Mines, it's going to be people grinding ghosts, and I just want to show you what this thing can do to ghosts. Now, we all know ghosts have, they have a million HP, which means that we're going to need to deal 1 million, damage in one hit if we want to be able to efficiently grind them with this setup. Now, of course, the Tiger at this point is not the way forward. It is 100% a Mithril Golem. A level 100 will set you back around about 10 million coins, which isn't that bad at all. Now, the great thing about the Mithril Golem pet is this one perk that it has. Danger Averse. Increases your combat stats by 20% on mining islands. And of course, the Dwarven Mines is a mining island. So all we can really do is test it out and see if we can one-tap. And I've already tested it, and the answer is 100% yes. We're dealing almost 1.1 million damage with a setup that's worth what? Around about 22 million coins. Now, like I said before, I want to set expectations, and I'm not trying to lead people on at all. Alright, the only reason I'm able to do this much damage is because I have relatively high magical power. If you're trying to do this with 600 magical power, it just simply won't work. You're not going to be able to deal the damage unless you find some broken way to somehow get a ridiculous amount more crit damage from something other than magical power. Then fair enough, you'll probably be able to do it. But for the most part, for the majority of people, you're going to need a decent amount of magical power. And it's also important to say that I could, realistically, if I wanted to, be doing more damage here. I wouldn't have maybe... I mean, I don't know. One for all is good for damage, but it's not the best option at all. It's just for the sake of an example. I could upgrade my armor more. I could put a different pet item on my pet, and I could do even more damage, really. But in all honesty, yeah, I don't know. I'm quite surprised. Like, for the price, this is pretty damn ridiculous, and no one can really deny it. And to be honest, now that Crimson Armor has pretty much been nerfed against ghosts, in terms of the swipe not really working properly, as it used to, might not be a bad alternative. I can't believe I'm actually saying that. I guess just purely in terms of grinding ghosts, the only real downside that this setup has is that traditionally most people would probably use a claymore or a giant sword for this task. And if you, obviously if you use a pooch sword, then you're not going to have any extra swing range, which is obviously a big selling point for a giant sword or a claymore, more for a claymore. At the same time, a claymore is, you know, hundreds of millions of coins, whereas this setup is like 20 million. So, I don't know. Pretty cool, to be honest, for the price. I just want to say, this is not a new setup at all. This is old, but it just works. And just remember, if you get tired of using the pooch sword of the Mastiff, as long as you still have your Mastiff, you can still, you know, I mean, not die, but... Actually, though, you can use this Mastiff to actually get this campfire badge. Just thought I'd let you know. Versatility, on point. But actually, I think it will be a challenge to find a setup this cheap that can actually deal that much damage. I mean, sure, if we start cheating, we can just put a level 200 Golden Dragon on and deal, you know, over 1.1 million damage just to the hub zombies. But that would kind of defeat the point. Honestly, when it comes to value for money, this recipe is very hard to beat. It is ridiculously hard to beat. Especially when you think the money that you could potentially invest into this setup, which is like just over 20 million coins, you could make back in just a matter of maybe an hour or two if you just grind ghosts. Now, don't get me wrong, you might spend a little bit more than 6 million on the sword, because realistically, if you want to grind ghosts, then you're not going to want the one for all sword. You're going to want something that you can put loot in on, and probably siphon as well. Anyway, let me know if you've tried this setup in the comments. What do you think of it? Is it overrated, or is it... I don't know. I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but just tell me what you think. Anyway, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.